Hello and welcome to Byju's IAS. Welcome to our daily quiz. Let's look at the first question. Which is the primary legislation in India to combat hunting and poaching? Is it the Environment Protection Act, or the Wildlife Protection Act, or the Forest Conservation Act, or the Biological Diversity Act? The correct answer is option B. The Wildlife Protection Act of 1972 prohibits hunting and poaching. See, the Wildlife Protection Act was enacted by the Indian Parliament in 1972 in order to protect several threatened species of plants and animals. Under this act, threatened species of plants and animals, they have been categorized into different schedules, and these schedules provide for varying degrees of protection. Under the act, hunting and poaching of scheduled animals has been prohibited, and even the harvesting of certain plant species has been largely outlawed. The protection against hunting, poaching and illegal harvesting under the Act has been extended to not just animals and plants but even to certain birds. There are a total of 6 schedules under the Act which provide for varying degrees of protection, and this includes Schedule 1 and a part of Schedule 2 which provide for absolute protection against hunting and poaching, and offences under these schedules have been prescribed the highest penalties. So endangered and vulnerable animals such as the tiger, the elephant, rhinoceros, the river dolphin, etc. They have all been listed under Schedule 1, and a few other threatened species have been listed under Part 2 of Schedule 2, and this categorization provides them complete protection against hunting and poaching. Hunting and poaching of these animals invite strict penalties which includes a jail term and as well as a hefty fine. Then under Schedule 3 and Schedule 4, a few other species have also been protected, but the penalties are slightly lower as compared to the penalties provided under Schedule 1 and Schedule 2. So those animals and birds that face a lower degree of threat, they have been listed under Schedule 3 and Schedule 4. Then under Schedule 5, those animals and birds which are considered as vermins or pests, they have been listed, and this includes the common crow, fruit bats, rats, mice, etc. And according to Schedule 5, these vermins or pests, they can be hunted freely. Then finally, under Schedule 6, a number of endemic plants have been listed which have been prohibited from cultivation and planting. Then also remember that the Wildlife Protection Act also has provisions related to trophy animals in order to regulate trophy hunting, which is seen as a sport in several countries. This question has been asked because on page number 1 of today's The Hindu newspaper, we have this article according to which the Supreme Court has directed the government to provide sufficient arms and weapons to forest officers to fight against hunters and poachers. The Supreme Court has taken note of the fact that India registers one of the highest mortality rates amongst forest officials who are usually killed in their line of duty by hunters and poachers. The animal parts that are harvested through hunting and poaching, they are trafficked across international borders and they are sold in international black markets, and hence wildlife trafficking is also considered one of the most serious forms of organized crime. Then generally, wildlife trafficking also has close connections with money laundering, drug trafficking and even terror financing. Take for example how several Northeast insurgent groups have raised revenue for their insurgent operations by trafficking wildlife products into Southeast Asian markets, by hunting and poaching the threatened species of animals and birds in the northeast of India. In many cases, the hunters and the poachers are well armed and they often target the forest officials when they try to apprehend them. It's quite alarming to note that India accounted for 30% of the fatalities amongst forest rangers in the world, and by taking this into account, the Supreme Court has directed the government to provide sufficient arms, weapons, bulletproof vests to forest officials. It has also directed the centre to rope in other law enforcement agencies such as the CBI and the Enforcement Directorate to supplement the resources of the forest officials. Now let's take up the second question. Consider the following statements with regard to CISF, or the Central Industrial Security Force. It is one of the central armed police forces under the Ministry of Home Affairs. It is primarily engaged in counter-terrorism and counter-insurgency operations. It provides paid security consultancy services to both public and private sector enterprises. which of the above statement or statements is or are correct? Amongst the given statements, the second statement is incorrect, so option D is the right answer. See, the CISF or the Central Industrial Security Force is one of the central armed police forces under the MHA, just like the BSF, CRPF, SSB, etc. But the primary mandate of CISF is not counter-terrorism or counter-insurgency, but its primary mandate is to provide for industrial security in the country, especially for critical infrastructure projects such as airport security, security for metro projects in Indian cities, protection for nuclear power plants, thermal and hydro power plants, and as well as security for critical industries, mines, and strategic installations such as the facilities of ISRO, DRDO, Department of Atomic Energy, etc. Apart from providing industrial security to critical infrastructure and strategic installations, the CISF also provides for paid security consultancy services to both public and private sector enterprises. The CISF is hired by several public and private sector enterprises, not just in India but around the world, to study the security requirements of critical industrial facilities and design security protocols. And by providing such paid security consultancy services, the CISF is even able to generate a lot of revenue for itself. This question has been asked because according to this article on page number 2 of the Hindu newspaper, the former DGP of Maharashtra, Subodh Kumar Jaiswal, has been appointed as the new chief of CISF. Then also note that the chiefs of Central Armed Police Forces are always senior IPS officers who are appointed by the Appointments Committee of the Cabinet, which is headed by the Prime Minister. But in the landmark Prakash Singh case, the Supreme Court issued a 7-point directive to introduce police reforms in the country. Under this 7-point directive, the Supreme Court had recommended the establishment of the National Security Commission, which would recommend the names of eligible senior IPS officers to be appointed as the chiefs of Central Armed Police Forces by the Appointments Committee of the Cabinet headed by the Prime Minister. So as per the directions of the Supreme Court in the Prakash Singh case, the Union government has constituted the National Security Commission in 2017, and this commission is chaired by the Union Home Minister, and it also includes 4 senior officials of the government who serve as members to the National Security Commission. This includes the National Security Advisor, the Cabinet Secretary, who is the highest ranking civil servant in the country. Then we have the Home Secretary, that is the Secretary to the Ministry of Home Affairs, and as well as the Director of the Intelligence Bureau. So based on the recommendations of the National Security Commission, the chiefs of the CAPF are appointed by the Cabinet Committee on Appointments. Let's look at the third question. Which of the following statements are incorrect? The State Election Commission has been entrusted with the function of conducting elections to the state legislature, panchayats, and the municipalities in the state. The provisions related to the State Election Commission are contained in Article 243K and Article 243ZA of the Constitution. The State Election Commissioner is appointed by the President of India. Amongst the given statements, the first and the third statements are incorrect, so option D is the right answer, because the question is asking you to identify the incorrect statements. See, the State Election Commission is constituted as per the provisions of Article 243K and Article 243ZA, which deal with elections for local bodies such as panchayats and municipalities respectively. But the State Election Commission is not responsible for conducting elections to the state legislature. This is the responsibility of the Election Commission of India. And the State Election Commissioner is not appointed by the President. Instead, he is appointed by the Governor of the state. Then also note that the State Election Commission is supposed to enjoy the same status as that of the Election Commission of India. And in order to keep this election authority autonomous from the state government and the executive, a few constitutional protections have been guaranteed to the State Election Commission and the State Election Commissioner. So according to these provisions, the State Election Commissioner can be removed only in the manner in which judges of High Court are removed. And the terms of service of the State Election Commissioner cannot be varied to his disadvantage after his appointment. These provisions are supposed to protect the autonomy of the State Election Commission from any possible interference from the executive. But unfortunately, many state governments have eroded this autonomy of the State Election Commission. This question has been asked because on page number 8 of the Hindu, we have an article according to which the State Election Commission of Andhra Pradesh has announced the dates for local body elections. But however, the government is looking to move the court in order to seek a postponement of the elections by citing the pandemic. Let's look at the fourth question. The Ladakh Autonomous Hill Development Council has been constituted under the 5th Schedule, 6th Schedule, Ladakh Autonomous Hill Development Council Act of 1995 or the J&K Reorganization Act of 2019. The correct answer is option C. The Ladakh region has been granted autonomy with regard to its administration and governance through the Ladakh Autonomous Hill Development Council Act of 1995, and this gives the Ladakh region limited autonomy in few areas of administration and governance. This autonomous council even holds its own local elections, which was held recently as well. But the Buddhist dominated Leh region, which is one of the districts in Ladakh, has been demanding the inclusion of this autonomous council under the 6th schedule of the constitution, which provides for greater autonomy in the tribal areas of states such as Assam, Meghalaya, Mizoram and Tripura. The Leh district has been demanding greater autonomy, and it has been seeking to include the autonomous council under the 6th schedule in order to protect its unique Buddhist culture. This question has been asked because according to this article on page number 9 of the Hindu, the Indian Army had signed a MOU with the Ladakh Autonomous Hill Development Council, and accordingly it has been relocating some of its positions near the Kargil plateau, which has been a long-standing demand of the people of Ladakh in order to expand the township to make space for further construction and development in the region. Let's take up the fifth question. Jemaah Islamiyah is a terror group operating in which part of the world? The correct answer is option D, Indonesia. This question has been asked because we have an article on page number 13 of the Hindu which makes a reference to the Jemaah Islamiyah. Jemaah Islamiyah is a radical terrorist outfit primarily based out of Indonesia, but it is also known to operate across Southeast Asia, and it is said to have established terror modules in several Southeast Asian countries including Singapore, Malaysia, Philippines, etc. Its stated objective is to establish an Islamic caliphate in Southeast Asia, and one of the major terror attacks carried out by this outfit has to be the 2002 Bali bombings. The popular tourist destination Bali in Indonesia was attacked by Jemaah Islamiyah with the intention of targeting the Western tourists, and this terror group has pledged allegiance to several global terror organizations such as Al-Qaeda, Islamic State and even to the Taliban. So as a result, Jemaah Islamiyah has been declared as a banned terrorist outfit by the UNSC 1267 Sanctions Committee, and according to this article, a radical cleric who was heading Jemaah Islamiyah and who was seen to be responsible for the 2002 Bali bombings has been released by Indonesia, and this has upset the victims of the terror attack because first of all, Abu Bakr Bashir, who was seen as the mastermind of the 2002 Bali bombings, was not charged and convicted for the Bali bombings in the first place. Instead, he was charged and convicted in an unrelated case related to terror financing. But he is widely believed to have been the mastermind of the 2002 Bali bombings. But after serving a brief prison term in an unrelated terror financing case, he has been released from prison by the Indonesian government. Now let's take up the sixth question. The term public stockholding is often used in the context of which international organization? The correct answer is option B, the World Trade Organization. See, the World Trade Organization establishes a level playing field for global trade. But however, trade negotiations at the WTO has always been a source of conflict between the developed countries and the developing countries due to their different priorities. At the WTO, the member countries are currently negotiating an agreement on agriculture, and during these negotiations, the topic of government subsidies, particularly agricultural subsidies, has become a highly contentious topic between the developed and the developing countries, because the developed countries look at excessive agricultural subsidies as an unfair trade practice, whereas developing countries like India have been insisting on basic agricultural subsidies in order to guarantee their food security. See, for a developing country like India, its public distribution system is integral for ensuring the country's food security. And for meeting these food security requirements, the government of India needs to maintain a large public stock holding of all essential food grains, which are basically procured through the MSP. But the argument of the developed countries is that in the name of meeting food security requirements, countries like India are providing massive subsidies to their farmers through MSP because the MSP rate is usually above the market rate. And hence, the developed countries label the MSP program of India and its public stock holding as a trade distorting practice, and they want these agricultural subsidies to be capped under the Agreement on Agriculture. But developing countries like India, they have protested against this proposal and they have opposed this move of the developed countries because for them, maintaining a large public stock holding is very essential for ensuring the country's food security. So for the time being, a temporary solution has been worked out at the WTO and a temporary cap has been placed on the public stock holding limit. But a permanent solution is yet to be worked out, and hence India has urged the members of WTO to work towards finding a permanent solution to the issue of public stock holding for food security purposes. Now let's look at the fact of the day. Today we'll talk about the South Asian river dolphin. See, the South Asian river dolphin is an endangered species as declared by the IUCN in its red list. The South Asian river dolphin is basically a freshwater dolphin and it is endemic to the Indian subcontinent. But the South Asian river dolphin can be divided into two subspecies, that is the Gangetic river dolphin and the Indus river dolphin. The Gangetic river dolphin can be found in the Ganga river, the Brahmaputra river and their tributaries. Since these rivers are transboundary in nature, the Gangetic river dolphin can be found in India, Bangladesh and Nepal. Whereas the Indus river dolphin can be found in the Indus river and its tributaries. But today, the numbers of the Indus river dolphin has declined drastically and only a few thousand survive in the wild. And they can be found only in the main channel of the Indus river in Pakistan and in parts of the Bias river in India's Punjab. But due to their depleting numbers, it's very difficult to spot the Indus river dolphin in India. However, a few numbers are reported in Pakistan. Similarly, its cousin, the Gangetic river dolphin, is also highly threatened and a few thousand species survive in India, Bangladesh and Nepal. So considering its highly threatened status, the government of India declared the Gangetic river dolphin as the national aquatic animal of India in 2009. It has also been recognized as the official animal of the city of Guwahati, and to protect and conserve this unique species, a stretch of the Ganga river in Bihar has been declared as a protected area and it has been named as the Vikramshila Gangetic Dolphin Sanctuary. To prevent its hunting and poaching, the Indian government has listed the Gangetic river dolphin under Schedule 1 of the Wildlife Protection Act, and it has also been accorded with global protection under the CITES Convention by listing it under Appendix 1. CITES stands for Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species, and since the South Asian river dolphin has been listed under Appendix 1, it prohibits its international trade. Then since the South Asian river dolphin is migratory in nature, and also since its habitat is transboundary in nature, it has been accorded protection under Appendix 1 and Appendix 2 of the CMS Convention as well, and this listing under the Convention on Migratory Species or the CMS Convention helps in promoting transboundary cooperation with regard to the conservation of the South Asian river dolphin. The National Mission for Clean Ganga also celebrates the 5th of October as the National Ganga River Dolphin Day, and recently in August 2020, the Prime Minister announced the launch of Project Dolphin in order to conserve the river dolphins during his Independence Day speech. The Project Dolphin would be modelled on the lines of Project Tiger, and it is being implemented by the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. We took up this discussion on the South Asian river dolphin because according to this article on page number 10 of the Hindu, a group of youth from Uttar Pradesh have brutally beaten up a Gangetic river dolphin, resulting in the death of this endangered animal. And since this killing of the Gangetic river dolphin constitutes a serious criminal offence under the Wildlife Protection Act, criminal proceedings has already been initiated against the accused. So this concludes our discussion for the day. Thanks for watching.